All right. Yeah, my name is Thomas. I do product masterclass, and we help individuals and companies create better products. And we work a lot with the value proposition canvas, and we help a lot customers, clients, individuals design better value propositions. And what I mean with that is design better products, right? And when I first used the value proposition canvas, right, it was a love. Well, not really. It was actually a love-hate relationship. And if I'm really honest, I think it was even a hate-love relationship, because that simple tool is really not that simple at all. But, you know, over the years, I used it a lot with a lot of companies, with a lot of people. And this is just a couple of pictures out of my camera roll I have on the iPhone. And over the years, I recognized how it's easier, or what works and what doesn't, right? And today I distilled into 5 rules or 5 observations how you can apply the value proposition better for yourself, for your company, for your product, to create a better product for your company and your customers. So let's get started with the 5 rules. The first one is use segmentations, right? So here are 2 pictures of clients of mine. And what you see is on the left side, the field customer segment on top of the circle is empty. And I see that a lot, right? And on the right side, it's a value proposition canvas. It's totally cluttered with a lot of post-its, right? And when I see something like that on both cases, I went into the meeting and said, well, you didn't segment at all. And I've been right in both cases, right? And segmentation means you look for the differences at the very beginning. And you really want to, you know, spread out your ideas in different areas, different people, different segments which might use your product. Yeah. If you only have one segment, I would argue that you don't know your market yet, because there is never always just one segment. So let me show you a little bit how I use the value proposition canvas with teams I help, right? So first here we have an example with a startup team from Munich. And we created just multiple canvases to illustrate how we think about the different segments we think our solution could work for, right? And you see, like on top, we have 2 segments. We had a pretty good, you know, knowledge about what are the pains, gains, who are they, and how big is the pain at all overall, right? And on the bottom, you see 2 segments which we did not really interact too much yet, right? And we just said, okay, these are maybe, you know, maybe these are options, and we go deeper in them later on, but we didn't consider them yet too deep, right? Next example is pretty similar. This is a startup, pretty tech heavy. So they came with a great technology, and they actually searched for a customer segment with a problem. And I would assume that many people of you are in that situation, starting from a technology point. And that's always challenging, because you always go out and say, okay, this is a customer segment. We think they have this problem, right? And this is challenging. And we went to a lot of segments until we hit one, which people said, okay, this sounds good. Let's do a project together. So segmentation, the first thing is it's important that you actually do it, that you actually use Miro Mural. You know, it's easy to copy paste, have different canvases and separate your thoughts in different canvases, right? And the second thought about segmentation is how you actually segment your customers. And this is, I think, really important, and not too many people do it like that. I think a segment is a consistent group of people in the same situation having the same job to be done. So let me explain that. First of all, what do I mean with situation? If I could change one thing on the value proposition canvas, I would actually rename the field customer segment into situation. Because if you think about it, the situation somebody is in to purchase a product is actually really one of the most important things which defines the features and functions of a product. Because the situation is mostly the cause and not the correlation. It's really the cause why people purchase something, right? I want to study a lot and learn, and my environment is loud, and then I might,
Oh, Thomas, sorry, I think you just unplugged your microphone while demonstrating what noise looks like. And Hopin has muted you now. Sorry, folks, that's what you get with live demonstrations, right? Okay, you are still muted. So Hopin shows you as muted as well, so you might need to unmute directly in Hopin as well, even if you already fixed everything else.
Okay, can you hear me now again?
You are back. All right.
All right. Yeah. All right. Situation, really important. And the other one is the job to be done. And therefore, we have a field on the value proposition canvas. It's just the jobs, right? And these two fields define our segments. Yeah. So if you have a couple of people or a lot of people who are in the same situation and have the same job to be done or the same goal in their life, then we have a segment. So now we talked about that job to be done, right? What is the job to be done? And I want you to think about it as the finished story benefit. So what is this finished story benefit? Yeah. If I ask you, what do you want to do with a machine like that, a drill? Most people would most likely say, get a hole in my wall. And that, for most people, is actually the job to be done. But I could also ask you then, so why do you want to get a hole in your wall? And most people, or some would say, hang a picture on my wall, right? And this game, I typically can play quite some time. So I could also ask, why do you want to hang a picture on your wall? And you might say, to make the room nicer. Yeah? And on each of these levels, I could actually start to innovate, yeah, or fulfill the job to be done differently. Here's another example, which we did for music and for local radios, right? Where we asked people, okay, in which situation do you listen to music? People said, at work. And I asked, but why do you listen to music at work? It's, seems that contradictive that you at work want to have silence, I thought, right? And people said, yes, I want to have silence, but I actually want to mute my ambient sound. And I said, okay, why do you want to mute your ambient sound? And people said, to increase concentration. Why do you want to increase concentration? Be more productive, right? And we did that with a couple of situations or more situations around music or audio, right? Another one was while cooking. And we said, why do you listen to music while cooking? And they said, to break the silence. And we asked, okay, why do you want to break the silence? And we as humans, preparing our meal and our lunch or our dinner, we actually want to be, surrounded by people, and you don't want to feel lonely. So if you cook yourself, maybe some of you can emphasize with that. You don't want to feel lonely and you turn on the radio or something like that, right? And for almost all use cases in music, we found a job to be done that is more or less like saying, create a mood that I desire to. And then, depending on the situation, it's a different desire to be more productive, to feel better, to be, more energized while doing sports and stuff like that, right? So you go up the ladder, the different levels, until you come to something which is really significant. Yeah? And this job to be done is often really timeless. Yeah? To create the mood that I desire was fulfilled totally differently in the 80s with compact disc than in the 2000s, with a hard disk. And now it is fulfilled differently with Spotify. So jobs have different levels, and be aware of that is the most important, because many people get confused about these different levels. Yeah, they sometimes have different levels in the customer jobs, and then solutions obviously vary for the different levels you want to focus on, right? So here's a rule of thumb if you want to innovate in your field. Just go one level up and see how the solution alters there, because that leads you to a very important question. What is it what people actually want to achieve? Just by going one level up. All right, so number 3, use the hidden solution fields. Yeah. Let me take you through a small case study. The product masterclass we started, and we talked to a lot of product managers. And what we found is that many of them, came from different fields, like design or development, right? And after a couple of years in design or as a developer, working as a developer, they thought, okay, let me go into product management. I can do that better than my product owner or the product person I know, right? And after a while, they've been struggling, or after 1 or 2 years, they are in a position that they say, like, I wonder how I really can get better. Yeah. And that is actually the job to be done we want to fulfill. Become a better product manager to increase your impact in the organization or society, advance the career, or earn money. This is different motivations for people, right? So if we design now the value proposition for the product masterclass, it actually is not the case that there is just one solution. Yeah. If we talk to people in that situation, the reality looks much more like that. People have different options to get better at becoming a product manager. There are books, there is conferences like these ones today, right? There is training, one-on-one coaching, and even more of these solutions. Yeah. So it is important for you to really understand, like, what is the situation my customer is actually in. Yeah. So really look for the solution and workarounds. Yeah? Which brings me directly to the next point, and this is the pains and gains are attached to the current solutions your customer has. So let me explain what I mean with that. Yeah? If we just look at books, and I would ask my customer or somebody who is becoming a product manager, what is good or bad about books? They might say something like that, right? Books are great, right? They're cheap, it's accessible, great knowledge. I can get input from best thinkers in the world, right? And if I ask, okay, but what is actually not so good about books? They might say, well, like I read these books, but taking action and bringing it into my own life is kind of hard because I need to adapt the context to my personal situation. And furthermore, it takes really a lot of time. I mean, most of you actually, I have a lot of books over here, which I purchased, and I thought, okay, I need to read them, but I never touched them, you know, because it takes a lot of time to consume these books and make sense out of these books, right? And these gains and pains and these advantages and disadvantages of the current solutions we can have for conferences as well, right? Super inspiring, expert knowledge, great networking, you know. We flew to London, had a blast. That was great, right? What is bad about it? Sometimes it feels that they're in another universe, right? It's hard to get the context from the stage into my company, right? And one-on-one coaching, well, it's just simply too expensive. Who's going to pay? My boss is not going to pay, right? Training, yeah, super good. New impulses, it's hard to get it into your application. So I hope you can see that actually the current solutions give you a lot of information about the pains and gains, about the things people actually want and the things people, you know, miss or which are bad about the current solutions. Some of you might really wonder that because, you know, Osterwalder is really suggesting going the other way, like first going to the customer jobs and then see what's the pains and gains. I think the other way around, coming from the solution, is actually easier because it's more precise. It's easier to ask for and to look for. So looking at the current options from the customer perspective is really the easiest way out of my experience to discover the pains and gains. So how you do that is point 5, because I think you need to have a good interview structure in place to get these information out of interviews. So let me introduce you or show you quickly which structure I use for such interviews. And it's really super simple. I always start the conversation or the interview. Do you know the situation that, and then the problem context, right? Because that's a filter. I only want to talk to real world users, yeah, potential customers. And this is just a filter question at the very beginning. If people say, no, I've never been in the situation that I want to become a product manager, it's totally irrelevant what those people tell me about, you know, books and conferences. It's just not my target segment. And then I go in and say, tell me about the last time you had that situation. Yeah? And that's just a start for a pretty long conversation. And in the conversation, I look for 5 points, which here are with the icons, which I'm going to introduce you on the next slide. So the first step is the first thought. When did the problem you want to solve with that new product arise in your life? Yeah. Why did it arrive? What was the trigger? Like what was it? Maybe you have back pain and now you think about buying a new mattress, right? Maybe you have a new workplace and it's really loud, and at one day you realize, okay, I have headache in the evening. So what is it? What is the trigger actually? Yeah, what triggers you to go out there and search for a solution, right? And this is really important. Most people forget about this first thought in their interview, right? And it gives you the situation, it gives you the goals of the people. And then if people really have a job in their life, they go out and search for a solution, right? And they can describe where they searched, they can describe what they searched for, they can describe which channels they used, right? If they cannot describe how they did that, it's most likely not a problem. Yeah. And then in the next stage, you know, you compare the options, right? If I feel like I need a car now, right? I'm gonna go out, screen the market, and I compare the different cars which I might consider for my life to be perfect, right? And I can tell you, which options I found, right? What's good on the one thing, what's good on the bad thing, right? And these are the advantages, disadvantages, right? And you can compare these things and get a lot of information out of that conversation. The next thing is usage. People use something to fulfill their job today, right? How is the current solution? What is good? What is the process in a B2B context? Yeah? Talk me through the process. There you really understand the challenges, what's really getting on their nerves, what's painful, what takes a lot of time, stuff like that, right? And then you can reflect on the whole things, the 4 points you had before. Reflection. Give me an Amazon review on how your current solution works, right? 3 stars. Okay, why not 5? What's the difference? Yeah? So it forces you on a meta level, or the interviewee on a meta level, and weight the different options and challenges. So let's map that on the value proposition structure, right? First, the idea. First thought gives you the situation and the customer's jobs, right? Then the search and the evaluation, that gives you the information about the current solution in the market, the current options for the customer, the pains and the gains. And the current usage and the review process gives you actually a rating of the pains and the gains. What's important, what's not so important. And that is actually the interview structure, which will help you fill in the value proposition canvas really easily. So here are the 5 points again. Use segmentation, understand the job to be done, use the hidden solution fields. Pains and gains are related to those hidden solutions. Yeah? And last but not least, have an interview structure in place. So these are the 5 points I wanted to make. And now I will give you one rule, which will make it so much easier to apply the value proposition canvas for you. And it has a lot to do with this picture and a really lazy team I once had at a corporate. Because after a week of research, they came back with just one interview, right? And I told them, well, do the value proposition canvas anyway, right? And here in the picture, you can see like in the middle, that's like the interview notes, right? We just put the interview notes on a wall, created a circle, and I said, okay, tell me what's the jobs, what's the pains and gains. And what happened was the team having just one interview, it was much clearer for them to fill that thing out. It was really like, whoa, why did that go so easy, right? And I reflected on that, and actually, I think it makes total sense. Yeah? If you have only one interview, yeah, it's much more specific, less abstract. Yeah, it forces you by default to have a segment, right? So to segment, right? If you have one interview and you do another one, and then you look at both and think like, okay, are they similar? Are they the same? Can we put them together, or is it different? It's segmentation by default, and it is the simplest case you can start with, and that will teach you how to use the tool. So if I can give you one advice, yeah, using the value proposition canvas, start with a segment of one person, one interview, one value proposition canvas. Yeah. And I hope that will help you build better products and products that customers actually really want. Yeah. So let me close with a quote from James Ian. He said, never delegate understanding. And I think that's really the golden rule. If you're the product manager, you should be in the conversations with the customer. Even though you have maybe a team in a big organization, you really need to be into the conversation with your customer and be there and totally throughoutly understand your customer.